For Russian troops on the front lines in Ukraine, survival has never been easy, but in the spring of 2026, their situation is more dire than ever. In Moscow, Russia's leaders are growing desperate as territory starts to slip away and soldiers die faster than they can be recruited, month after month after month. For ordinary troops in the trenches, the consequences are extraordinary. Ukraine is trying to kill them, their own commanders are trying to kill them, and their government is trying to pay its way to victory through the simple expenditure of human lives. After 4 years of continuous conflicts, the Russian war machine has shown that it can press on despite astronomical losses, but that war machine is struggling to keep pace with Kyiv, and when it can't crush Ukrainian soldiers under its boot, it makes up for that shortage by crushing its own. Back in 2023, it was Russia's prison conscripts that were fighting at gunpoint, but today, practically every Russian soldier is in that same position. For them, the question isn't whether death on the front line might be inevitable. The only question is whether their fate will be decided by Ukrainian drones that were simply too good to stop, or by a Russian command that chooses to sell them out. Just before we continue with today's video, quick word from our fantastic sponsor, AG1. Look, my mornings are usually a big rush to get out of the door, and look, if something takes too much effort, I'm just not going to keep doing it. That is the reality of my life, probably also the reality of your life. We live busy lives, and that's why I've been using AG1. You take one scoop, you mix it in the bottle, you shake it up. It takes, they say on the talking points here, 30 seconds. I'm like, how slow can you be? Just scoop it and shake it. 10 seconds. No planning, no stacking a bunch of different things. Everything you need, nutrition information on the back listed. It's all very tiny because it contains so much stuff. It's meant to support things like gut health, immune health, and just keep your routine consistent, especially when your schedule isn't, and whose is. And that's the main reason I like it. It's low effort, tastes good, fits into what you're already doing. If you want to give it a go to drinkag1.com/warfronts and you'll get a flavor sampler plus a bottle of vitamin K2 plus D3. That's right here, included for free with your first subscription, about a $72 value. It's just a simple addition if you're trying to keep things a bit more consistent. And now back to today's episode. The threat from Ukraine. Now, before we begin today's episode, we got to make one thing very clear. Much to the chagrin of Russian propagandists, and specifically whichever propagandist told Russia's top general to claim on the 21st of April that Moscow has captured 1,700 square kilometers of territory this year, this war is being tracked quite diligently, and Russia's claims of victory seem to have lost contact with reality. Certainly enough Russian soldiers have been sent on suicide missions into the kill zone that those small groups may have collectively claimed the capture of 1,700 square kilometers before each of those groups was located and wiped out on a front line where up to 95% of all casualties now come from omnipresent drone swarms. But this is a conflict that is tracked diligently by a wide range of highly reputable, independent monitors, and the situation is very different than what Russia claims. For our purposes today, the key things to understand about this stage of the conflict are as follows. Russia's spring offensive seems to be creeping forward exceptionally slowly, with what seems to be the eventual goal of capturing the major city of Sloviansk, the northern anchor to Ukraine's critical fortress belt. For its minimal territorial gains, Russia has paid with incredible numbers of troops, and as of now, Russian losses appear to have outpaced conscription for several months straight, according to a combination of Western intelligence assessments and outside monitoring groups. Ukraine has been able to take back relatively small patches of territory, and especially in the south of the country, they've been able to wear down and overstretch Russian units. That being said, both sides face persistent challenges on the front lines, including Ukraine's chronic manpower shortages and Russia's widening deficit in drone technology. To the extent that either side has momentum on the front lines right now, that momentum is minimal, and Russia's spring offensive does not seem to be on track to accomplish its goals. Of course, Ukraine's battlefield dynamics are a worthy discussion of their own, but today we're going to focus on the predicament of Russian troops on the front lines. That's because it's their experience, most of all, that reveals many of the greatest issues facing Moscow right now. Those include everything from rapidly improving Ukrainian technology to shifting Ukrainian tactics to blunders and catastrophic mismanagement on their own side. But broadly, we can split Russian soldiers' predicament into two main types of problems. All the things that Ukraine is doing to those soldiers, and all the things that the Russian command is doing to them. On Ukraine's side, the biggest change is the introduction of an entire suite of new drone designs that are unlike anything Russia has ever seen. Instead of describing those drones ourselves, we're going to quote one Apti Alaudinov, a senior commander from the Chechen Special Forces and a close ally of Chechen dictator Ramzan Kadyrov. Describing these new drones, described by Russian state media as, quote, Martians, Alaudanov explained, quoting, "There has been a qualitative change in UAVs at the front. In essence, Ukraine has introduced a new generation which is creating serious logistics challenges. These drones operate day and night and are inaudible except in the final seconds when they're diving. They are undetectable by conventional detectors and are protected from electronic warfare. They are extremely high quality, mass-produced, and military-grade." And there's a theory that they're controlled not by human operators, but by AI. Other Russian sources indicate that the range of Ukraine's frontline tactical drones has doubled, their numbers have nearly tripled, and they fly at speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour, far faster than the quadcopters and hexacopters that Russian forces are used to. While Ukraine is believed to have introduced a range of new designs in the last few months, two in particular seem to be irresponsible: the Bumblebee and the Hornet. First introduced to the battlefield in 2025, the Bumblebee uses cutting-edge microelectronics and excellent onboard software to perform a number of tasks autonomously. Quoting a New York Times article on the drones, they carry out, quote, pilotless takeoff or hovering, geolocation, navigation to areas of attack, as well as target recognition, tracking, and pursuit, up to and including terminal strike, the lethal endpoint of the journey. Because they can handle those functions autonomously, the drones are immune to most types of jamming, since, after all, there are no incoming or outgoing signals to jam. They operate with better range than drones that use fiber optic cables, and they can't be cut off from human operators by simply cutting those fiber optic lines. While the Bumblebee was relatively rare this time last year, Ukraine has started to produce them in such great numbers that they're available all up and down the front lines. Even more troubling for Russian forces is the Hornet, a fixed-wing strike drone that also uses AI for targeting and terminal attack. The Hornet uses shaped fragmentation warheads that destroy the drone itself upon impact, making them very difficult for Russia to study. They're extremely cheap to build and very light, but use cameras that can provide excellent image quality for the onboard AI to work with. Less common but highly promising drones are revealed with stunning frequency. For example, on the day that this episode was written, a Ukrainian defense company called Airlogics unveiled not one but two new strike drones of its own. One is called the Anubis, a long-range weapon that's clearly designed to minimize its radar signature, while the other, the Seth X, is meant for swarm attacks. For ordinary Russian troops, the arrival of these drones constitutes a threat of an entirely new magnitude. For years, the front lines have been governed by a back-and-forth cycle of drone innovation, where one side achieves a new and dangerous adaptation, the other side builds countermeasures, and so on until the next innovation and the next series of countermeasures in response. But Ukraine's new developments change the game completely in ways that Russia isn't ready to adapt to. Fully AI-enabled drones completely circumvent jamming technology, and they can't be detected through the handheld drone detectors that Russian troops rely on. Quoting Russian mill blogger Yuri Kartanok in an excerpt from a post lamenting the growing strength of Ukraine and its Western allies, quote, "It's time to tell the truth. The enemy dominates in UAVs." Just as important are the ways that Ukraine is using its drones, especially the longer-range models that can reach into Russia's backlines. Instead of focusing exclusively on deep strike capability, Ukraine has been focusing its fire on mid-range targets, the supply depots, ammunition stockpiles, and staging areas that Russia relies on to sustain its operations at the front. Ukrainian drones have been very effective in hitting Russian soldiers as they mass into relatively large groups in places where they were supposed to be relatively safe. Whether they're hitting troops, vehicles, supplies, or munitions, Ukrainian mid-range drones have created critical disruptions in Russia's ability to prepare forward movements and resupply or reinforce the troops already stuck at the front. As a result, Russia hasn't been able to put together a coherent offensive, and troops at the front have been caught in exposed, overextended positions with no real way to recover their situation by themselves. According to Russian scientist Alexei Chadayev in a recent essay, quote, "We have enormous problems with last-mile logistics. Up to 90% of our losses are currently occurring there. So even getting our drones to the launch point is a gamble, no matter what they use." Perhaps most frightening, however, are Ukraine's recent advancements in unmanned ground vehicles, or UGVs. In mid-April, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky revealed that for the first time, Ukraine captured a Russian position exclusively using unmanned ground and aerial drones, quote, "without infantry and without losses on our side." According to war expert Lawrence Friedman, that attack seems to have taken place in Kharkiv Oblast in 2025, and per Western defense sources speaking with WarFronts, Ukraine has only stepped up its game since then. Today, combat-capable UGVs are present in the hundreds in some areas of the front lines, while logistics and resupply robots are operating in the thousands. According to Ukraine's Ministry of Defense, UGVs carried out 9,000 missions in March of 2026 alone, and while the vast majority of those missions likely consisted of non-combat resupply tasks, the impact is impossible to ignore. Those UGVs reduce strain on Ukrainian personnel, keeping them well out of harm's way, while allowing frontline drone operators to be safely resupplied while they stay hidden in foxholes and other hideouts. In limited areas, Ukrainian combat UGVs can even create such a mass of dangerous fighting equipment that Russian troops are forced to withdraw, surrender, or fight for their lives. In Ukraine's south, those UGVs are being paired with tactical aerial drones and human shock troops in new and fascinating ways, where each asset's capabilities can enhance the capabilities of all the others. A recent New York Times article outlined a UGV assault that took place in Ukraine's east in late February, where UGVs equipped with thermobaric rockets and large explosive payloads destroyed a fortified Russian position while their controllers sat in a command post far from the front lines. Of the 10 Russian soldiers believed to be present at the position, 9 were killed by the UGVs, while the sole survivor was eliminated moments later by a kamikaze UAV. Now, as bad as all of that might sound for Russian troops on the front lines, Ukraine's evolutions are just half the problem. But before we get into the other side of their predicament, we'd like to take a moment to discuss Fronts.co, our team's premium website, written news outlet, and one-stop shop for global conflict analysis. On Fronts, our team works with award-winning journalists and experts to provide key insights into the wars, flashpoints, and geopolitics that shape our world. Plus, we provide exclusive video episodes every single week, as well as our briefing room, a Saturday collection of under-the-radar stories from across the globe. Also on Fronts, we provide multiple free offerings each week, including our twice-a-week newsletter on world conflicts, WarFronts Weekly. Best of all, Fronts.co costs just $5 a month or $50 a year. You can check out the site, subscribe if you like what you see, and now let's get back to Ukraine. The threat from Russia. For ordinary Russian soldiers, the introduction of so many new Ukrainian tactics and fighting systems are already an existential problem. Russia has largely failed to keep pace with Ukrainian advances, either in developing comparable systems for the Russian military or developing the countermeasures required to respond. Russian tactics haven't yet changed to deal with the introduction of Ukrainian UGVs, and Russian strategy hasn't adapted to deal with persistent Ukrainian strikes across the back lines. But if nothing else, those shortcomings could at least be blamed on an honest, perfectly understandable capability gap. In any conflict, one side will end up innovating faster than the other, and if Russia were to be caught behind, then that's just life. But Russia's problems are made exponentially worse by a leadership that seems intent on shooting itself and its frontline personnel in the foot with a stunning regularity. According to reports from Russian veterans and mill bloggers, Russia's Ministry of Defense seems to have made the astonishing decision to block the supply of FPV drones to the Russian front lines, supposedly to reserve them for Russia's dedicated unmanned systems forces. If true, that is a catastrophic decision for Russian soldiers. Ukraine's battlefield is active around the clock 365 days a year, and reconnaissance, bomber, and kamikaze drones are always present, ready to identify targets and wipe them out within the span of just minutes. For Russian troops, their own FPV drones are vital to level the playing field, providing their own battlefield surveillance and reaction capability. But even more important than those drones' availability is their response time on a battlefield where targets appear and disappear quickly and decisions must be made in mere seconds in order to capitalize on the many small openings that can create forward progress. Get rid of those FPV drones across the front lines and Russian troops are at a greater disadvantage than ever. Right now, Russia's drone force operators are not present on the front lines with nearly the strength required to make up the gap, and even when they do arrive, they'll create serious barriers to coordination and rapid response. In exchange, Russia might end up getting many of its best frontline FPV operators killed simply because they aren't part of Russia's official drone force. Quoting one Russian mill blogger, Andrei Filatov, the decision will result in, quote, destroying the personnel trained on drones at the cost of enormous losses on the front lines. Even the small measure of effectiveness that currently exists, hard won by the troops, will be wiped out. At best, the fighters will be transferred to the unmanned systems forces. At worst, they will simply be ground down in assaults. According to Filatov, the decision was likely an economic one made by Russia's first Deputy Minister of Defense, quoting again, the centralization of UAVs is the wet dream of any major defense supplier. Small manufacturers, frontline engineers, and other passionate individuals are being squeezed out. The innovation market, which relies on speed and flexibility, is collapsing. The result is less room to maneuver on the battlefield, but more money for the major players. Nor do Russia's unmanned drone forces seem particularly promising. Formally established in November 2025, the country's unmanned systems forces were assigned to the command of one Lieutenant Colonel Yuri Vaganov, a leader with no service experience and no formal military education, who's been given the unofficial and probably involuntary call sign, Toilet. While he's not much of a soldier, Vaganov holds a near monopoly on the supply of FPV drones headed to the Russian military. Under his leadership, Russia appears to have discarded many of the technologies, the lessons, and even the expertise of earlier experimental drone units, despite the fact that those units had achieved major successes in adapting drone technology to the Ukrainian battlefield. Instead, the drone force is trying to gather as many operators as possible who are comfortable using the relatively basic hardware that Vaganov can provide. Quoting mill blogger Vladimir Romanov, instead of building their own forces from scratch, using modern frontline experience, the drone forces are trying to poach the best operators and technicians from other units, thereby leaving many critical areas understaffed. He continues, and yes, the competent authorities are also well aware of the showpiece training centers whose doors open only during inspections, even though funding from the Ministry of Defense has been flowing in steadily. Making matters worse, Vaganov is purportedly trying to extend his monopoly over Russia's drone supply and is now targeting the civilian-led efforts to make up the gap. Even prior to his leadership, drone shortages on the front lines were severe enough that Russian volunteer groups were sourcing drones and component parts from China, but now those imports are being blocked by Russian customs. Russia's newly imposed blocks on Telegram have made fundraising even more difficult, and incoming crackdowns against VPNs and cryptocurrency may turn out to be the final nail in the coffin. Outside of drone technology, Russian military leaders appear to have committed fully to the brutal equation that they've been relying on for years: expend as many Russian lives as possible in assaults that might bring the country a few hundred meters closer to an ultimate victory. Recent reports from within Russia suggest that as tanks and other heavy armored vehicles have become less and less relevant, tank units are being slowly dismantled. Their troops are pulled away, a few at a time, and sent to frontline assault units so that eventually entire platoons and then entire companies exist only on paper. Other reports have suggested that specialists, even highly qualified professionals, are being sent to the assault units regardless of their qualifications, even when they are known to be in critical demand across the front lines. Finally, we'll share a report recently publicized by Russian journalist Sergei Komkov, who alleged in mid-April that the Russian army has been taken over by organized criminal elements. Komkov referred to the growing syndicate as a, quote, organized thieves' den, with roots in, quote, many dugouts and personnel quarters of our armed forces in the special military operation. Komkov alleges that the syndicate began to grow when Russia conscripted massive numbers of convicted criminals into the military, where those criminals quickly began to exert authority of their own. Quoting again, having looked around, quickly adjusted to the situation, they have begun to establish their own prison-like thieves' rules. Komkov explains that those criminal groups have basically achieved control over Russia's enlisted ranks, including the same unlucky contract soldiers expected to travel into no man's land on extremely dangerous missions. Those soldiers are compelled to transfer part of their earnings to the syndicate's bank accounts on threat of violence, and are forced to either become part of the gangs themselves or risk more frequent or more deadly frontline assignments. Komkov alleges that those syndicates now enjoy the protection of military inspectors and prosecutors who are unwilling to challenge them, while junior officers visit their enlisted soldiers only rarely and try very hard not to put themselves at risk by making waves. If all of this somehow doesn't sound bad enough, then rest assured it's only expected to get worse. We haven't even mentioned Ukraine's long-range strike campaign, which has knocked out a high share of Russian oil refining capability over the last 2 months, nor have we mentioned Ukraine's growing arsenal of drone interceptors, which have become increasingly capable of stopping the jet-powered, low-flying strike drones that Russia increasingly relies on. We haven't mentioned an imminent expansion in Ukrainian drone production capacity as Western allies begin to finance production lines and take advantage of Ukraine's ability to build double the output that it can finance by itself. Perhaps most importantly, we haven't mentioned the telltale signs that Russia is about to take a step it's avoided since the start of the full-scale invasion: conscripting relatively wealthy ethnic Russians from across the major cities where digital communications are increasingly being restricted to lay the foundations to suppress intense public backlash. For now, we're going to leave those problems for another day. Instead, we'll leave you with the words of a final Russian mill blogger, Yevgeny Goldman, in a recent message broadcast to his Russian followers, quote, "This is fucking insane, guys. This is what the this war is like. They're just overtaking us like crazy. We're trying to catch up like turtles, but they're overtaking us like cheetahs." Overtaking indeed. And right now, Russia has no easy way to reclaim its lost advantage. Thank you for watching.